Hey everyone, Goliath here. Welcome back to another video. So today I want to go over the bruiser item changes that are coming to the game very soon and what I think this will mean for Urgot specifically. So I do want to say before we jump into the video, things are in PBE. They could still change. I am also curious what you guys think about the items as well, so let me know in the comments your thoughts and opinions on the item changes. With that being said, let's jump into the items. First up on the list, we have Sterak's Gage, and I'm really liking how this item is looking for Urgot. So right now, Sterak's gets pretty gutted if you're a range champion because there's a massive range penalty on the shield. So they're completely taking that away, which is really awesome for Urgot. They're also making it 75% of your bonus HP shielded for 3 seconds rather than the 8% max HP per stack of Bloodlust. And this is going to turn out to be a way bigger shield. If you have 2000 bonus HP, that's going to be a 1500 HP shield for 3 seconds, which sounds absolutely crazy. And then they're also changing the way that the AD works on this item. So instead of 50 flat AD, you're going to be getting 40% base AD as bonus AD. And I like how they're doing this. It is going to be a little bit less AD until you get up into the really higher levels. So once you get level 18, it's actually going to be 52 AD, which is going to be a little bit more than it is currently. But until then, it will be a little bit less, but that's fine because the shield will be way bigger. And yeah, I just really like how they're doing this. 75% bonus HP, as well as the 40% base AD. Both of those things make it to where it's going to be good on champs like Urgot and like Juggernauts and people with good base stats that are also wanting to build bonus HP. But it's not going to be abused on stuff like ADCs and assassins. So hopefully if the item is good, it won't be nerfed due to other champions abusing it. That's kind of my hope here. But yeah, Sterak's Gage looking super good to me. Definitely going to find a way to try to fit that in the build. I'm not exactly sure on builds yet. It's hard to say without actually testing stuff out. But I think this will definitely be good in the build at some point because the shield is going to be just so good if you're building a lot of HP, which you can build a lot of HP and damage with like Titanic, Cleaver, and all those items. So yeah, this is looking super nice. Moving on to Black Cleaver, we're getting a 5 AD buff and a 5 ability haste buff at the cost of 100 HP nerf. I'm really not sure how to feel about this one. I think they know Sterak's is going to be absolutely crazy with that shield scaling off bonus HP. So they're just trying to tone back the HP on other items like Black Cleaver. That would be my guess here. Yeah, it's hard to say. I would rather have the HP personally than the damage, but a 5 AD buff is kind of nice. I think in games where you're doing really good, this is going to feel fine, maybe even better because of the damage increase, but in games where you're kind of behind or even, it might feel a little bit worse. You might feel a little bit more squishier. All in all, I think Cleaver is still going to feel relatively the same, and I think it's definitely still going to be sold on Urgot. Next up, we have Hexdrinker and Maw of Malmortius, which I'm just going to combine these since Hexdrinker builds into Maw. And they're both getting a 5 AD buff. Maw's getting a 5 ability haste buff as well. And they're changing the magic shield to scale more off your bonus AD rather than your max HP. And they're also adding in the Omnivamp passive, the 12% Omnivamp, once the magic shield procs, which is actually kind of cool. I did like that passive. The big problem here is that it's a lifeline passive, so you can't build Sterak's if you build Maw. That's a huge downside for Urgot, especially with how good Sterak's is looking. One thing I will say about the fact they're adding back in the Omnivamp passive is I used to build this item into Mordekaiser. I used to build this first item, and the 12% Omnivamp actually allowed me to out-heal his passive damage, so maybe I'll try that out again. I don't know. Maybe if I'm versus Mordekaiser and they have like AP jungle and AP mid as well, and like AP support, just like heavy AP, maybe I could see it, but other than that, I can't really see this item being built that much on Urgot. Moving on to Goredrinker, it's going to be getting a 5 AD buff as well as a 5 ability haste buff at the cost of 150 HP. Holy moly, that is a big HP nerf, man. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be too good on Urgot. I haven't really been building Gore anyway. So I'm personally fine with the Goredrinker changes. It might even be a little bit worse on other champions, which could be better for us Urgot mains, so I guess I'm alright with that one. Next up, we have Divine Sunderer. It's going to be getting a 5 AD buff as well as a 100 HP nerf. And they're also removing, if the target is a champion, restore percentage of target's max HP. Wow, interesting. So they're just straight up removing that. This seems like a really big nerf to Divine Sunderer, which I guess is good for us Urgots because the champions that use Divine Sunderer use it really well. Camille, for example, insane synergy. That's part of what makes that champion so good in my opinion. Wukong as well. All the people that build Divine just use it super well. And the item does have a range penalty, which makes it not so good on Urgot, unfortunately. So I guess this is a good change. It looks like they're just straight up nerfing it pretty hard, which is good for Urgot in my opinion. Lastly, for the mythic items, we have Trinity Force coming in with 100 HP buff, actually. Wow. So it looks like they want to make all the mythic items 300 HP, just for like probably easier balance or something. That's interesting. All they're doing is 100 HP buff. But yeah, anyways, I'll do some testing with this item for sure. I don't think it's bad on Urgot. I think the attack speed is the big downside. But everything else I think is really solid. You stack up the threefold strike really quick with W. Spellblade, you can toggle your W on and off to get the Sheen proc. And it's also, it doesn't have a range penalty like Divine Sunderer does on the Spellblade, which is cool. And the mythic passive is also pretty solid too, so yeah, I don't know. I'll test this item out on Urgot. 100 HP buff is pretty nice. I did feel really squishy when I was testing this item out a while back. So that's kind of cool to see. Maybe another potential decent mythic for the crab. Next up, we have Death Dance, and I'm really not sure how to feel about this one. Especially with how... I feel like you're going to want to be building items that give HP now with how the new Sterak is going to work if you're going for that build path. But it sounds like Death Dance could be good if you go for like a damage build path. So the way that Death Dance currently works is you take 15% of physical damage only taken as a bleed. They're changing that to be 10% of all damage, so magic damage as well. I think that part is definitely a buff for sure. That sounds more similar to like the old Death Dance, for example, which is really cool. And then they're also changing the Defy passive to where when you damage an enemy within the last 3 seconds and they die, you're going to heal based off 175% of your bonus AD rather than your 15% max HP. So this is going to make Death Dance better in builds where you're not stacking HP. It's going to be better in like more damage heavy builds. So overall, Death Dance does sound better. My problem is, again, it doesn't give HP. So I really don't know if I'm going to be building it that much. Because with the new Sterak as well as Titanic, I feel like it's going to be really important to just go for a bunch of bonus HP, personally. But definitely interesting. It could be good in more of like a damage-heavy build where you're not stacking HP, I guess. Last and final legendary item we have on here is going to be Blade of the Rune King, and they're basically just giving this a slight 2% on-hit damage buff. I really don't think this item will be good on Urgot just because it gives attack speed, which you don't really want. And also gives lifesteal, which only works on your W. It doesn't work on your passive damage. And then also the on-hit is halved by 50% in your W. So a lot of downsides to this item for sure. And it gives no HP. But the fact that it's getting buffed could actually be good for like some melee champions, especially into Urgot, which is kind of scary. So I guess that'll be something to look out for. But overall, I don't think that buff is too insane. I don't think it's anything to really worry about. Alright guys, that's going to be it for the item changes, but I did want to give a few closing thoughts before I wrap up the video here. So I think Sterak's Gage is definitely the main takeaway. That's what I definitely have my eye on for next patch with Urgot builds. I think that shield is going to be absolutely massive. It's going to be really fun to test that out. And HP damage builds are personally the type of builds that I really like. I like being beefy, but I like still doing damage. So I really like this. I like those Juggernaut, just beefy builds. And I really hope they keep this item without the range penalty, because I think that's so nice that we finally don't get screwed by that. I think the other thing that's really interesting is Death Dance. I really can't tell with Death Dance. I feel like it's not going to be that good just because it doesn't give HP. And also it just gets gutted so hard for being a range champ. Like you go from 30% damage stored as a bleed to 10%. I just feel like that's too big of a penalty, personally. And then I think the last thing that stands out to me is the Trinity Force buff. It's only 100 HP, so maybe I'm overestimating that. But I feel like there could be some potential with Trinity Force and Urgot. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I've tested this item out before, and it did feel pretty good, honestly. I just felt kind of on the squishy side. So maybe the 100 HP buff will fix that. I'm not really sure. But yeah, something to test out, I guess. It's always hard to tell with mythics on Urgot because you're building them so late in the game anyway. And Urgot's just a very good champion, a very good base champion at level 13. Because your shotgun knees are on such a low cooldown and they're just doing so much damage. So it's like, how much of this is the mythic item? How much of this is my champion? How much of this is like just me doing well in the game maybe? Like there's so many variables, you know? So it makes it hard. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys for watching the video. I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care.